Andrew here from Fairweather Farm, and today we're potting up beets. When we first started growing beets here on the farm, we tried to direct seed because that's what I had learned at another farm that I previously worked for, and it never really worked for us. So last year we worked with transplants, and finally we got our first beets harvest. They're really nice. However, the year before we tried and it didn't work, and it's because the cells that we had beets were too small. They were like 288s, so really small cells. This year we did it in 128s, and then it makes a seedling that looks like this. This is a yellow beet. The variety is Touchstone Gold. And today I'm going to pot this guy up from 128 into 72. That way it's going to have more space and it's going to grow before I put it outside. Another farm that I worked at afterwards, they actually did do with transplants and they did a 128, so we would be planting out like this. The problem is when you plant them out small like this, it does work, but the beets have more trouble competing, whereas I feel I'm going to try this year, giving them more space than 72, and I think that that's going to give a nice big plant, and it's going to be able to compete, and it's going to yield hopefully a bigger beet. All right, let's get right into potting up these beets. So, take the bag out, and we're going to cut on all four sides. That way we're going to pull the beet out. And the way that I like to do it is I like to flip it on its side like this, and I will just one by one try and pull them. Sometimes you won't get them. They may break off like this, put that to the side. And I'll generally kind of like throw that into an obscure location where I think it might grow on its own, and I kind of give it a chance. And if it works out, then great, we have another plant. If not, well, we lost it anyways. Sometimes I find that they break off if you haven't loosened it enough in the cell, or if the plant is just too small. Sometimes there's more than one beet in each cell, and that makes it actually easier to pull because you're pulling on a few different plants at the same time. The other trick is to pull low down on the plant instead of high up on the plant. And also you can see that. So like you want to pinch low here and not high up here because there's less resistance and you have less chance of breaking it off that way. And see, like this one broke. And once I've got a good stack of them, then I start to pot them up. And when I do pot them up, what I like to do is, if there's two that are a good size, then I'll split it, and then I'll plant one in each cell. Try to make the most of it. However, if they're really small, then I just pluck them off to the side and keep the nice one. It broke off. And once I've got it in the cell, then I have to fill in the soil around it, and depending on how much root I was able to keep, it can be easier or more difficult. If you've got a tiny little beet seedling where you've got like not much root left on it, but you want to plant it anyways, so just like packing in the dirt right away, get it solidified. And then the nice thing is when you're potting up is that you can do your best to center the plant within the center of the new cell. Alright, now that we've got a batch of beet seedlings that we're ready to transplant, we grab them, grab our 72 flask, which is bigger than the 128. We grab them in, and place it in the hole. Grab a bit of soil mix. I like to keep a pot on the table. I do have a bigger receptacle right there to my left. This is just quicker to grab. And I'm going to fill in the soil and pack it down a little bit around the seedling, making sure that it's in the center. If you have one where there's two nice plants on the same block, I'll split it very delicately. See, this one broke off, and this one has a bigger piece. The bigger piece goes in first, it'll kind of stand up on its own. The smaller one, you have to add a little bit of soil to the bottom of the cell, place it in, hold the plant, and then fill in the soil around, pack it down a little bit, and then it'll fix itself once you water it, get some sunlight on. And that's how you transplant beets, guys. A perfect plot here. In a few days, you should start to see some new growth, and they'll be ready to go back to the field. So that's another episode here on the farm, and I'll catch you guys